about you, but when I look back at amazement at how many things I've done as a kid that would be considered mindless idiocracy today for any other kid, I guess it's a sign of the times. When I was growing up as a kid, the safety rules were more of a suggestion rather than a reasonable requirement. No seatbelts, standing up in the back of a pickup truck, driving down the road, roaming around on a bike late at night. Smoking a cigarette in the woods was a height of criminal activity. Lifting candy from a local supermarket and getting caught warranted a call to your parents, which would normally mean a good lickin' with a razor belt. What was an adventure then to me now is harrowing danger. Age has a way to change the meaning of words and their associated feelings. Which brings me to a true campfire story about three of us kids going down the Clackamas River from McIver Park to the mouth of the Willamette River in the dead of winter. Winter in Oregon usually means lots of rain. The rivers would be swollen and more dangerous than usual because parts of the river would expand over treacherous oxbow floodplains. In the case of the Clackamas River, they would have all kinds of tree stumps and bushes sticking out. My friend Mike had just bought a yellow rubber raft good for 3 people. No life vest that I know of, and even if there was, we wouldn't have used them because we were hitchhiking. The raft was heavy enough as it was. Oh, hitchhiking was a normal form of transportation for kids. You never heard of stories about kids disappearing and things like that, so we had no idea that these things could happen. We arrived at a little store near Carver Bridge and went in to buy the necessary junk food for the trip, but we didn't call it junk food. They were necessities: beef jerky, candy, and cheap Shasta sodas. The clerk was an elderly man who noticed our bundle of raft paddles that we left near the door. He said, "I hope you kids are not planning to go down the river. It's the wrong time of the year, you know." We partially ignored him because we didn't want anybody to ruin our adventure. We were primed to go and there was nothing going to stop us. Seeing that we weren't the listening kind, he offered a bit of advice. "Okay, so you kids are going, I can see that. But just remember, as you leave the park, there's a fork in the river. So whatever you do, don't go on the right. There are too many trees and brush that wash during down the heavy rains, and you'll have trouble making it through." Easy enough, we half listened, but were more interested in getting our stuff than finishing our journey. So back out into the rain. Yes, always rain. It's like even if we don't fall in the river, we will still be soaking wet. Kind of good thing about Oregon is that it really never gets cold like in some places. We were warm enough with 2 pairs of pants, 3 pairs of socks, 3 shirts, and a soggy knit hat. My friend Mike was kitted out with a waterproof outfit, the kind that firefighters had. He was bone dry, while me and my brother Laird were dripping wet, leaving trails of water like Hansel and Gretel. We managed to hitch a ride pretty quickly to McIver Park, hiked down into the parking place where we could inflate our raft and start our journey. To get the raft inflated, we had a very small bicycle pump that took ages to inflate the raft. I was afraid it'd be dark before the dumb thing got pumped up. The only good thing was the pump got nice and warm from the friction, which made it almost enjoyable to get a turn at pumping. We saddled up and put our stuff into the raft, got the oars into the loops, and pushed off. The river looked a bit more engorged than it had during the summer. Oh well, the more the merrier. It was so fun and exciting to be on a real boat navigating a real river. And that time, it was a major accomplishment. We sort of felt like Lewis and Clark going on an expedition to explore the unknown. At least that's how we felt. We were just starting down the river, and before we knew it, we got to the point where we could see, in the near distance, the river had an obvious fork that required a decision. Left or right? Okay, he said right, but what about it? We had a small debate, and right sounded right, so we went right. But that was wrong. Just as we passed the point of no return, we saw bushes and tree trunks sticking up right out of the middle of the river, which seemed like it was going through the woods. Apparently, the recent rains had released a bunch of branches and tree trunks that had piled up around this area. Since it was sort of like a floodplain, it would be a natural course for these kinds of debris. There was actually no sense of danger, but more of how are we going to get through this? Action planning, we started to paddle like hell to try to get out on the side. In our minds, we can get the raft out and walk. But the river wasn't going to have any of that. We might as well have had no paddles, as we were heading straight for a big tree trunk sticking out in the middle of a narrow gap, where the water was just rushing through. On each side there were armies of brushes sticking up, so we just had to make it through the straight and narrow. The raft made the choice for us. It went half left, half right, so the tree trunk was right in the middle of the raft, and the water current was trying to suck us down. We used the paddles to try to push our way around. The water was rushing in, getting all of our hard-earned junk food wet. The Shasta cans were making their way down the river without us. Finally, my brother, who was in the middle by the tree trunk, went on Mike's side, and that proved what saved us, as his weight favored the raft to move around the log, and then on we went. It was so much fun and thrilling. The rest of the trip was just as bad, meaning just as fun. We went through whitewater rapids and more trees. Ultimately, we got to Clackamas Park. It was almost dark, still raining with gloomy clouds, but we were so happy. We felt like we achieved some monumental task and explored the unknown. To us, at least. Today, I look back and think, oh my God, no life jackets, didn't tell our parents where we were going, didn't listen to sane and qualified advice, but we made it. We defied really deadly possible outcomes and came out alive. But that's me looking back. At the time, it was just an amazing accomplishment, and it felt good. These little adventures make up who you are. I don't think I would do something like that now. I know too much. But maybe that's the beauty of youth, not knowing. That's why it's so beautiful. Please subscribe and help me continue in this open source journey by subscribing. Or if you're really wanting to join with me on this journey, consider a little financial support to help keep me alive.